From a robot that only malfunctioned twice during filming to an actor who had to be fired, rehired, then darkened with makeup to play an Indian character he originally auditioned for as white, Short Circuit's production was full of bizarre twists. The film's lovable Johnny Five robot wasn't just revolutionary technology. It sparked casting controversies, inspired a horror movie robot, and became so convincing that people mistook a white actor for a famous Bollywood star. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Short Circuit, 1986. Fact 1. Johnny Five's voice was never supposed to be permanent. When you hear Johnny Five's distinctive, quirky voice in Short Circuit, you're listening to something that was never meant to make it into the final film. Puppeteer Tim Blaney was hired to operate the robot and provide a temporary scratch track voice during filming, with the understanding that a professional voice actor would replace him during post-production. This is standard practice in Hollywood, where placeholder voices help actors react naturally on set before the real voice is recorded in a studio months later. But something unexpected happened during the 3 months of filming in 1986. As the crew worked with Blaney day after day, watching him bring Johnny Five to life through both physical manipulation and vocal performance, they became emotionally attached to the specific way he delivered the robot's lines. Blaney's voice had a childlike enthusiasm mixed with mechanical precision that felt perfectly authentic for a military robot experiencing consciousness for the first time. His delivery of lines like "Number 5 is alive" and "No disassemble" became so iconic on set that director John Badham and the producers couldn't imagine anyone else in the role. By the time filming wrapped, the decision was made to keep Blaney's voice permanently. This meant he needed to be officially cast and credited as the voice of Johnny Five, transforming him from an uncredited on-set assistant to a key member of the cast. The choice proved brilliant, as Blaney's performance became one of the most beloved aspects of the film. His voice gave Johnny Five an innocent, endearing quality that made audiences genuinely care about whether the robot would survive. What started as a temporary solution became one of the most memorable robot voices in cinema history. Fact 2. The robot only cost production 2 hours total. Johnny Five was one of the most complex practical effects in 1980s cinema, and the production built 15 different robot versions to handle various scenes and stunts. Each version was designed for specific purposes, from close-up facial expressions to full mobility for running sequences, and the robotics team had to ensure they all worked seamlessly during the tight filming schedule. With so many mechanical components, servomotors, radio controls, and intricate moving parts, you'd expect constant technical problems that could shut down production for hours or even days at a time. But something remarkable happened that rarely occurs with practical effects of this scale. Robotics supervisor Eric Allard and his team were so meticulous in their preparation and maintenance that the Johnny Five robots malfunctioned for only about 2 hours total throughout the entire production. This meant that out of 3 months of filming, the crew lost barely any time to technical difficulties with their star mechanical actor. Allard's background in special effects and robotics meant he understood not just how to build impressive machines, but how to build reliable ones that could withstand the demands of a film set. His team performed constant maintenance, had backup systems ready, and anticipated problems before they could derail filming. This achievement was especially impressive given the technology available in 1986, long before modern computer-controlled animatronics and digital fail-safes. The reliability of the Johnny Five robots allowed director John Badham to focus on performances and storytelling rather than waiting for repairs, and it kept the production on schedule and budget. For a film that depended entirely on audiences believing in a sentient robot, having that robot actually work consistently was crucial to capturing genuine reactions from the human actors and creating movie magic. Fact 3. Fisher Stevens was fired, then rehired for the same role. The casting history of Ben Jabatuya, Johnny Five's inventor friend, is one of Hollywood's most awkward and controversial production stories. Fisher Stevens was originally cast in the role when the character was written as a white American technician, and he began preparing for filming with the rest of the cast. But then the filmmakers decided to rewrite the character as an Indian immigrant, presumably to add cultural diversity and comic relief through an accent. This meant Stevens was fired from the role he'd already been cast in, and the production began searching for an Indian actor or someone who could convincingly play one. They hired Bronson Pinchot, who would later become famous for playing Balky on the sitcom Perfect Strangers, and he began preparing to play Ben with an Indian accent. But before filming could begin, Pinchot was offered the lead role in Perfect Strangers, which was a major network television opportunity he couldn't pass up. This left the production scrambling to find someone to play Ben with just weeks before filming was scheduled to start. In a bizarre twist, they approached Fisher Stevens again and asked him to play the same role he'd been fired from, except now he would need to perform it in brownface makeup and with an exaggerated Indian accent. Stevens agreed, and he spent the production performing as an Indian character despite being a white Jewish actor from New York. Both Stevens and director John Badham have since expressed deep regret about this decision, acknowledging it was offensive and wrong, especially given that talented Indian actors could have played the role authentically. The performance has aged poorly and remains one of the most criticized aspects of an otherwise beloved family film. Fact 4. Many Indians thought Fisher Stevens was Bollywood actor Javed Jaffrey. Fisher Stevens' performance as Ben Jabatuya was so convincing to some audiences that it sparked a widespread rumor in India that confused countless movie fans. Many people became convinced that Stevens was actually Javed Jaffrey, a famous Bollywood actor and dancer, performing under a different name for an American production. The rumor spread so extensively that it became accepted as fact in certain circles, with people confidently claiming they recognized Jaffrey's distinctive features and mannerisms in the character. The resemblance between Stevens in makeup and the real Javed Jaffrey was apparently strong enough that casual viewers who didn't scrutinize the credits could easily believe they were the same person. This case of mistaken identity grew to the point where Javed Jaffrey himself became aware of it and felt compelled to address it publicly. He issued a statement clarifying that he had no involvement whatsoever with Short Circuit and was not Fisher Stevens in disguise. The fact that a Bollywood star needed to officially deny being in an American movie shows just how persistent and widespread the rumor had become. It's a strange footnote in both actors' careers, with Stevens unintentionally impersonating someone he wasn't even trying to impersonate, and Jaffrey having to distance himself from a role he never played. The incident highlights the complications that arose from the brownface casting decision. If the filmmakers had simply cast an actual Indian actor in the first place, this entire confusion could have been avoided. Instead, the performance became convincing enough to fool some viewers while simultaneously being offensive enough to draw criticism from others. The Jaffrey rumor remains a bizarre piece of short-circuit trivia that connects an American comedy to Bollywood in a completely unintended way, creating a cross-cultural mix-up that neither actor anticipated. Fact 5. Saturday Night Fever dance scene was a self-reference. One of Short Circuit's most entertaining moments comes when Johnny Five discovers television and watches Saturday Night Fever, then proceeds to perfectly imitate John Travolta's iconic dance moves with his robotic body. It's a funny scene that shows the robot learning about human culture through pop culture, but it's also a deliberate inside joke by director John Badham. What many viewers don't realize is that Badham directed both Short Circuit and Saturday Night Fever, which came out 9 years earlier in 1977 and became one of the biggest cultural phenomena of the decade. By including this reference, Badham was essentially having his new movie pay tribute to his most famous previous work. The connection goes even deeper than just showing clips from Saturday Night Fever. In both films, the main male character is named John, and in both films, the main female character is named Stephanie. This wasn't a coincidence, but rather Badham creating an intentional parallel between the two movies. In Saturday Night Fever, John Travolta's character Tony develops a relationship with Stephanie, and in Short Circuit, Steve Guttenberg's character, Newton Crosby, whose first name is Newton, but everyone calls him by his last name, interacts primarily with Ali Sheedy's character, Stephanie Speck. The naming choice creates a subtle thematic link between the two films that goes completely unnoticed by most audiences. For Badham, including the Saturday Night Fever reference was likely both a nostalgic nod to his breakthrough film and a way to show how far special effects and filmmaking had come in less than a decade. The scene works perfectly even for viewers who have no idea about the directorial connection. But for those who know Badham's filmography, it adds an extra layer of appreciation and shows a director comfortable enough to reference his own previous success. Fact 6. A Johnny Five robot was recycled for a horror movie. After Short Circuit finished filming in 1986, the production had 15 different Johnny Five robots sitting in storage, each one expensive and too specialized to have much use outside the specific film they were built for. But one of these lovable military robots got an unexpected and much darker second career in another 1986 film. The chassis from one Johnny Five unit was converted and modified to create BB, the killer robot in Wes Craven's horror movie Deadly Friend, which came out just months after Short Circuit. The transformation was dramatic, taking a cute, expressive robot designed to make audiences fall in love and turning it into something meant to terrify them. Deadly Friend tells the story of a teenage genius who implants his robot's AI chip into his deceased girlfriend's brain after she's killed, creating a violent hybrid creature. The robot BB starts as a friendly companion, but becomes associated with death and horror as the story progresses. Seeing the same mechanical skeleton that made people cheer for Johnny Five now being used in scenes of violence and terror is a jarring example of how the same prop can serve completely opposite purposes depending on its context and presentation. The conversion required stripping away much of Johnny Five's personality and charm, replacing his expressive features with something more cold and mechanical. This kind of prop recycling was common in Hollywood, especially in the 1980s when practical effects were expensive and studios looked for ways to reuse materials. But there's something particularly strange about Johnny Five's second life as a horror element, given how much effort the Short Circuit crew put into making him lovable and sympathetic. It's unlikely that audiences watching Deadly Friend had any idea they were looking at repurposed parts from that summer's family-friendly robot comedy. Fact 7. Sid Mead's robot eyes were a design battle. The expressive eyes that make Johnny Five so endearing and human-like almost didn't exist because of a fundamental disagreement between the film's production designer and its director. Sid Mead, the legendary designer behind the visual look of Blade Runner, Tron, and Aliens, was hired to create Johnny Five's appearance and insisted the robot needed expressive eyes with moving eyelids to create an emotional connection with audiences. Mead understood that for people to care about whether this robot lived or died, they needed to see something they could read as emotions, and eyes are the primary way humans interpret feelings in others. But director John Badham had a different concern that created a creative conflict. Badham wanted every single part of Johnny Five to have a logical military purpose that made sense within the film's story. The robot was supposed to be a prototype weapon system, so every component needed to justify its existence from an engineering and tactical standpoint. Purely aesthetic features that existed only to make the robot look cute would break the believability of the military setting. Mead and Badham went back and forth on this issue, with Mead arguing that without expressive features, the audience wouldn't emotionally invest in the character, and Badham arguing that unjustified features would make the robot seem fake and undermine the entire premise. The compromise they reached became one of the most important design decisions in the film. The eyelids that give Johnny Five his expressive capability were explained and justified as protective shutters that serve as sun guards for his optical sensors and camera coverings to protect delicate equipment from damage. This gave the robot a legitimate military function for having movable shields over his visual sensors, while simultaneously allowing the puppeteers to create the appearance of blinking, squinting, and other eye-related expressions that made Johnny Five feel alive and relatable. Fact 8. The studio forced wrong. Lead actors on the film. According to actor Austin Pendleton, who played Newton's scientist colleague Howard Marner in the film, Short Circuit could have been a very different and potentially much better movie if the studio hadn't interfered with casting decisions. Pendleton revealed in later interviews that the original script he read was heartbreakingly beautiful, with complex character development and emotional depth that genuinely moved him. But the studio executives at TriStar Pictures insisted on casting Steve Guttenberg and Ali Sheedy as the leads, despite the fact that they didn't match the character descriptions in the script and weren't who the filmmakers originally envisioned for the roles. Guttenberg was coming off the massive success of Police Academy and its sequels, making him a bankable comedy star that studios wanted in everything. Sheedy had just starred in The Breakfast Club the previous year, establishing her as a popular young actress. From a box office perspective, these were smart, safe choices that would help market the film. But Pendleton felt that the casting changed the fundamental nature of the movie, transforming it from something special into what he described as a nice little, slightly bland kids' movie. The implication is that the original script called for more nuanced performances or different types of actors who would have taken the material in a more sophisticated direction. This kind of studio interference was common in 1980s Hollywood, where executives often prioritized commercial appeal over artistic vision. Directors and writers would create complex, thoughtful scripts only to have them simplified and made more mainstream through casting decisions and script rewrites aimed at broader audiences. Pendleton's comments suggest that Short Circuit, which is already beloved by many, could have been an even more memorable and emotionally resonant film if the original creative vision had been fully realized without studio pressure to cast trending stars. Fact 9. Stephanie's House sells for $340,000 and becomes an Airbnb. The charming house where Ali Sheedy's character, Stephanie Speck, lives in Short Circuit isn't just a movie set. It's a real home located at 197 Hume Avenue in Astoria, Oregon, and it has its own interesting post-film history. For decades after the movie came out, it remained a private residence while occasionally being recognized by fans who would drive by to see the location where Johnny Five hid and developed his consciousness. But in 2019, the property went up for sale and was purchased by a movie enthusiast for $340,000, which is relatively affordable for a house with such pop culture significance. The new owner saw an opportunity to share this piece of film history with fans and converted the property into a Short Circuit-themed Airbnb rental. Guests can now stay overnight in the actual house from the movie, sleeping in the same rooms where scenes were filmed and walking through the spaces where Johnny Five interacted with Stephanie. The owner decorated the interior with 1980s memorabilia and Short Circuit references, creating an immersive experience for fans who want to feel like they're inside the movie. It's become a popular destination for people visiting Astoria, which is already known as a filming location for several classic 80s movies, including The Goonies. The house looks remarkably similar to how it appeared in the film, with its distinctive architecture and surrounding property, largely unchanged over nearly 4 decades. For fans who grew up watching Short Circuit, staying at this Airbnb offers a unique form of nostalgia and connection to a beloved childhood movie. It's a perfect example of how film locations can take on lives of their own long after the cameras stop rolling, becoming pilgrimages sites and tourist attractions that keep the movie's legacy alive. Fact 10. The hit song named the robot. If you've ever wondered why the robot in Short Circuit is called Johnny Five, the answer comes right at the end of the film when El DeBarge's song, Who's Johnny?, plays on the van radio as the characters drive away. The song's chorus repeatedly asks, "Who's Johnny?" which directly references the robot's newly chosen name and serves as both a celebration of his freedom and a clever bit of branding. What makes this particularly interesting is that the song wasn't written specifically for the movie, but rather was adapted from an existing El DeBarge track to fit the film's themes and tie into the character's arc of self-discovery and identity. The song became a massive hit in 1986, reaching number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and climbing all the way to number 1 on the Hot R&B singles chart. Its success helped promote the movie and vice versa, creating a mutually beneficial relationship where fans of the film bought the single and people who heard the song on the radio became interested in seeing the movie. The catchy, upbeat melody and the memorable "Who's Johnny?" hook made it a staple of 80s radio and helped cement Johnny Five's name in pop culture. The robot's name became instantly recognizable even to people who hadn't seen the film yet. Strangely, despite the song's popularity and its close association with the movie, Short Circuit never received an official soundtrack album release. This was unusual for a film with such a successful musical tie-in, as most movies would have capitalized on the song's success by releasing a full soundtrack featuring other music from the film. The lack of a soundtrack album makes Who's Johnny stand alone as the primary musical legacy of Short Circuit, forever linked to the image of a lovable robot discovering what it means to be alive. Fact 11. Director cameos as cameramen during news. Scene director cameos in their own films are a beloved Hollywood tradition, with Alfred Hitchcock being the most famous practitioner of hiding himself in brief appearances throughout his movies. John Badham continued this tradition in Short Circuit, with a cameo so quick and subtle that most viewers never notice it, even after multiple viewings. During the scene where Stephanie gets ambushed by news reporters asking her questions about the military robot that's been spotted in the area, there's a brief shot of a news cameraman filming the impromptu interview. That cameraman is actually director John Badham himself, stepping in front of his own cameras for a brief moment to be part of the movie he was making. The cameo is intentionally understated and blink and you'll miss it brief, with Badham visible for only a second or two in the background of the shot. He's dressed as a working news cameraman with the appropriate equipment and doesn't draw attention to himself in any way, making it purely an Easter egg for eagle-eyed viewers who might recognize him. Unlike some director cameos that are obvious and played for laughs, Badham's appearance is so seamless that it doesn't break the reality of the scene at all. You could watch Short Circuit dozens of times without ever realizing the director is on screen. This kind of subtle self-insertion shows a director who's having fun with the filmmaking process without making it about himself. Badham didn't need to announce his cameo or make it a big moment. He simply wanted to be part of the world he was creating in a small way. For fans who do spot him, it adds a fun layer of trivia to share with others and a reason to re-watch the scene more carefully to catch the moment. Fact 12. The climax features impossible Mount St. Helens reference. During the film's climactic chase sequence, where the military is hunting for Johnny Five through the forests of the Pacific Northwest, there's a line of dialogue that makes absolutely no geographical sense if you know anything about the real location being referenced. A soldier mentions driving to the top of Mount St. Helens, suggesting it as a search location or destination that vehicles can access. The problem is that Mount St. Helens, the active volcano in Washington state, never had roads leading all the way to its summit, even before its catastrophic eruption in 1980. The mountain was accessible by hiking trails, but there was no way to simply drive to the top like the dialogue suggests. The eruption of Mount St. Helens in May of 1980 was one of the most significant volcanic events in United States history, completely destroying the mountain's peak and reducing its height by over 1,000 feet. The eruption killed 57 people and caused billions of dollars in damage, fundamentally changing the landscape of the area. By the time Short Circuit was filmed in 1986, the mountain was even less accessible than before, with restricted areas around the blast zone, and certainly no roads leading to where the summit used to be. The film is clearly set in the Pacific Northwest, making the Mount St. Helens reference geographically appropriate, but the specific detail about driving there shows the screenwriter didn't research the actual location. This kind of geographical error is common in Hollywood movies, where writers often include real place names to add authenticity without checking whether the details they're adding actually make sense. For most audiences watching Short Circuit, the line probably went completely unnoticed, since most people aren't familiar with the specific accessibility of Mount St. Helens. But for anyone from the Pacific Northwest, or anyone with knowledge of the volcano, the line stands out as an impossible claim. Fact 13. Movie contains impossible. 1993 technology in 1986. In one of the laboratory scenes, Newton Crosby can be seen working at a Macintosh computer that has an inbuilt color screen, showing the kind of advanced computing setup you'd expect a genius robotics engineer to have access to in a high-tech military facility. There's just one problem with this apparently minor set dressing detail. Apple didn't release a compact Macintosh model with a built-in color screen until 1993, 7 full years after Short Circuit was filmed and released. The computer Newton uses in the film is technology that literally didn't exist yet. In the real world at the time, audiences were watching the movie in theaters. In 1986, Macintosh computers came with small built-in black and white screens, and if you wanted color, you needed to connect an external color monitor, which required a completely different, larger computer setup. The compact all-in-one Macintosh with integrated color display that appears in Newton's lab wouldn't become available until the Macintosh Color Classic was released years later. This means the props department either modified an existing Macintosh to appear more futuristic than current technology actually was, or they created a mock-up computer that looked the way they imagined future Macs would look, accidentally predicting Apple's design direction years ahead of time. This kind of anachronistic technology appears in many movies, especially science fiction and tech-focused films where production designers try to make the setting look more advanced and futuristic than reality. Sometimes they get lucky and predict real technological developments, and sometimes they create impossible devices that never come to exist. In Short Circuit's case, the color Macintosh is a funny example of the film being slightly ahead of real-world technology, showing audiences a computer that looked plausible enough that most people wouldn't question it, but didn't actually exist yet. Fact 14. Johnny Five's laser sound is borrowed from Ghostbusters. Sound design in movies often involves creative recycling, where audio engineers reuse effective sound effects across different films to save time and money while maintaining quality. Short Circuit's sound designers engaged in this common practice when creating the audio for Johnny Five's laser weapon, and they borrowed from one of the most iconic sound effects of the 1980s. The distinctive sound that plays when Johnny Five fires his laser is the exact same audio used for the Ghostbusters proton packs powering up in the 1984 film Ghostbusters. If you listen closely to both movies, you can hear the identical electronic whine and energy buildup sound that signals a powerful weapon is about to fire. This kind of sound effect sharing was extremely common in the 1980s, when sound libraries were frequently used across multiple productions and audio elements from successful films would be reused in later movies. The Ghostbusters proton pack sound was particularly memorable and effective at conveying the idea of high-tech energy weapons, so it made perfect sense for the Short Circuit sound team to repurpose it for Johnny Five's military laser system. Most audience members wouldn't consciously notice the connection unless they were specifically listening for it, and even those who felt something was familiar might not be able to pinpoint exactly where they'd heard the sound before. For movie fans who love both Ghostbusters and Short Circuit, discovering this audio connection is a fun bit of trivia that links two beloved 80s comedies about unlikely heroes facing down threatening forces. The proton pack sound effect has been used in numerous other films and television shows over the years, making it one of those iconic pieces of movie audio that transcends its original source material to become part of the general vocabulary of science fiction sound design. Fact 15. A third movie script sent Johnny to college. After the success of the original Short Circuit and its 1988 sequel, Short Circuit 2, there were concrete plans to continue Johnny Five's adventures in a third film. A script for Short Circuit 3 was actually written in 1989 and then rewritten in 1990, showing that the studio was seriously considering another sequel and investing resources into developing the story. The plot of this unmade film would have followed Johnny Five as he attended college, presumably exploring themes of education, fitting in with humans in an academic setting, and continuing the robot's journey of self-discovery and learning about what it means to be alive. The concept of Johnny Five going to college had comedic potential and would have allowed the character to interact with a new generation of young people while exploring higher education and intellectual growth. It could have been a fish-out-of-water comedy where a sentient military robot tries to navigate college life, attend classes, live in a dorm, and deal with typical campus situations. The script likely included jokes about Johnny Five's literal interpretation of assignments, his perfect memory making tests trivial, and his difficulty understanding social dynamics and relationships. However, despite 2 rounds of script development, the producers ultimately found the material unsatisfactory and decided it wasn't strong enough to move forward with production. This left Johnny Five's final official appearance as a 1991 educational short film called Auto Theft: Hot Cars, Cold Facts, where the robot was used to teach teenagers about the dangers and consequences of stealing cars. This anti-car theft PSA was a far cry from the theatrical adventures fans hoped for, and it served as an anticlimactic ending to the character's screen legacy. Short Circuit 3 remains one of those tantalizing what-if projects in movie history, where fans can only imagine what might have been.